Welcome to the Flicks, Picks, and the Nitpicks, and I'm your humble host, Nove, 718, man, and I'm joined here with my co-host, T, the Droo. Can you say something to the people out there, T?
Hey everybody, it's Droo here.
And we are back with another throwback for you this week. We hitting you with the 1-2. I came with the 1, and here comes T with the number 2. And the flick in question today is 48 Hours. Now, since this isn't my pick, T, I would like you to intro the film.
Alright then, well, like I did last week with Die Hard, I decided to pick what I consider to be another classic movie, which is, if I have a top list of movies, this is definitely up there. So, the premise of the movie is really simple. There was a detective. Well, this movie was made in 1982. It stars Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. It was directed by Walter Hill. Walter Hill is a director who's directed many action movies. Walter Hill's name has been around for a long time. And the premise of this movie is really simple. Nick Nolte plays a detective named Jack Cates. And during a routine to back up two other partners, he ends up in a shootout with an escaped convict and his partner, who has just recently escaped from prison, or chain gang actually, named Gangs, and an Indian named his Indian
Native American.
Native American, I'm sorry, named Billy. And Jack's partner is killed in the midst of it. And the reason why it's called 48 Hours is because Nick Nolte's character finds out that Gangs is part of this group, and one of his members' name is Reggie Hammond. Reggie Hammond is played by Eddie Murphy, and so what he does is, on a long shot, he goes to the prison. He gets Reggie Hammond released for 48 hours to help him solve, to catch gangs, basically. And when he goes to meet Reggie, Reggie also tells him, the only way I can help you is as if I'm on the street with you. That's why he's released in Jack's custody for 48 hours, because Reggie also has a secret as to why he wants to get out of the jail. And that's the premise of the movie, how these two, a cop and a convict, partner up for 48 hours to stop this madman running around killing people with a cop's gun, as they say in the movie.
All right. Now, since we now know the flick in question, let me know, why did you select this film in particular?
Well, like I did with Die Hard, I really started to think about what I consider the best movies that I've ever seen. And some of my favorite movies happen to fall into the category of our throwbacks. So I decided to stand with movies that I feel have changed time or stand the test of time. And like Die Hard, which I consider one of the greatest action movies, the greatest action movie, I actually consider 48 Hours one of the best movies I've ever seen. And one of the greatest buddies, even though it's a cop and a convict, one of the buddy cop movies ever made. And I think it stands the test of time. And it is up there, like Die Hard, with one of my favorite movies ever made. So that's why I picked it.
Well, it's interesting that you would suggest that, because actually my question, I was hoping that maybe we can answer by the end, which you seem to have come to already a resolve that I'm not exactly sure if I come to a resolve, which was maybe by the end of the show we can figure out, answer if this can be considered a buddy cop flick. A buddy cop. So that's why I thought that was quite interesting. But we'll get to go through the show, and by the end we could talk a little bit more about it, since you've already come to your personal senses. But you can see why it was a posturing conversation, at least for me, because they're not both cops. But we'll get into that. But in any event, let's since this is your pick, I figured, why don't you start off with your top pick and get on with the show?
All right, so my top pick, and it's going to sound familiar as to what I did last with Bruce Willis. 2 words, Eddie Murphy. And the reason why I picked this, I'm going to go back to another YouTuber, Grace Randolph. And I'm going to use the same quote she used for Paul Newman. Put me in the right role, I'm priceless. The same way I felt about Bruce Willis as John McClane. I don't know if the stars aligned for this, but for Eddie Murphy's debut movie, this was what you call a star-making performance. It seems like they just handed him the baton, and Eddie ran with it. And this was his first movie. And if I'm not mistaken, he didn't really have any acting classes. He was just a comedian. He was getting known for Saturday Night Live. And I think Delirious had come out already. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think Delirious was 81 maybe. So maybe that came out, and they were looking for someone who can go opposite Nick Nolte. His agent, reached out to, Walter Hill's keeper. Eddie got the job. And I don't even think they knew what they had on their hands. But I think that he literally he took the baton and ran with it. And it was a star-making performance. There are hit movies, like, for example, I love to use this example with Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise's first hit movie is Risky Business. Financially, blockbuster, what you would call blockbuster back then. But the movie, the star-making performance was Top Gun. And I think Eddie had both in one shot. His first movie was a hit movie and was just a star-making performance. And he stole the show. So that would be my first standout.
I have no complaints. I mean, Eddie Murphy, you could kind of tell that there was an it factor to him as soon as he just stepped onto the scene. As soon as you heard his voice and as they introed him, he just carried it off all personality.
Wasn't that an intro?
Yes, that his intro was the voice, and then when you finally met him, that was kind of like the build-up. Because you heard him all the way through, and then you finally get to see him. But before I even get into my pick, I did want to piggyback off of what you said introing the film. One, I mean, it's a film directed by Walter Hill, and it was off a budget of $1 million, grossing to $78.9 million. And once you let me know that this was your pick, I thought it was an interesting pick. I actually seen it for the first time in a long time, some years ago. So it's been some years since I seen it again, and I actually, kind of fell back for it. Like, yeah, Dad, this is like a cool movie. Like, I ain't seen this in a minute, and I thought it was dope. So it was a dope selection that you would actually pick now, and I believe it was Eddie's first debut as an actor, and. Yep. I will admit, you could kind of tell like this was the beginning of all his movies in the 80s. The kind of buddy film, if you will. Where it really kind of like carried, the movie kind of like hinges, not just so much on the action, but just character interactions. That being said, I did want to set off with my first pick, which was the opening moment where they actually let you know what this movie will be about. And it was, I forget, I think it's somewhere in the first act. It might have been, it kind of eludes me in a moment where they have an argument, and he says, Nick Nolte's character says, Jack, we not partners, brothers, or friends. And until I get gains, he's going to be sorry you ever met me. And it was a little bit before that where they kind of set the tone of the whole movie. They told you what this whole fucking movie was going to be about. Because I believe Eddie Murphy set it off by saying, hey, man, if you're going to keep acting like this, then this partnership is going to have some problems. And that's when Jack says that. And that whole interaction explains that's the movie. In and of itself. The whole fucking movie.
Yeah.
About how can this unlikely people, the convict and the cop, the black guy and the white guy, the dude from the bottom versus the dude, can't really say exactly from the top, but he's part of the structure, the system, and a man that lives outside of it with two motives. One objective, and can they make this work to get to the end before they kill each other?
Yeah.
And that's the whole movie. And I thought it was a great way to insert a scene that was the buckle up moment to let you know what this movie, buckle up, this is what it's about. And if you like it so far, this is the movie. And it's all about the roller coaster that they're on, because we already know it's going to be about them two, but now it's about how them two figure that out through the roller coaster of the story. And that was a major pick that stood out to me. It was actually that moment. Your thoughts?
Okay. Yeah, no, excellent. It's an excellent pick, because I think it's the exact quote, because I love the movie. I've seen it so many times. We ain't brothers, we ain't partners, we ain't friends. Something about I'm keeping you down till gangs is dead or locked up. And you're right. It lets you know that we're not friends. I got you out of this jail for an objective. And if you don't serve the objective, you're useless to me. And my job is not to be your friend. My job is not to be nice to you. You are out here for a reason. And I think you're absolutely right. It does. It lets you know that this is a very unlikely and uneasy alliance. You know what I mean? We would not even be in the car having a conversation if it wasn't for this objective. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't talk to you on the street if it wasn't for this objective. My job is to put guys like you in jail, and Eddie's job is to stay away from guys like me, and now we're in the same car with the same mission.
A classic recipe that is the motive of many films of its own ilk.
Yeah, and also it just lets you know that, hey, when you talk about logic versus emotion, we're here for a job. Now, we're going to put everything aside and we're going to work together for this job. But make no mistake, I don't like you, you don't like me, I could care less for you. But we have a job to do. Mm-hmm. So I do think that's exactly, I think your assessment was amazing.
All right, so your pick.
Well, my next pick is, I'm going to stick with the Eddie Murphy, and I'm going to pick the exact moment that Eddie Murphy became a star.
Okay.
The infamous, famous country bar scene.
Okay, yeah.
I'm saying, and I'm going to go back to something. I'm going to go back to Will Smith for a second. Will Smith did an interview when Bad Boys 3 was coming out, and he did it on LeBron James' The Shop. And then I'll tie it all together. He says, if you remember the first Bad Boys, do you remember the slow motion scene where Will is running with his shirt open? Mm-hmm. He says that when they filmed that scene and Michael Bay played it back and slowed it up, he said to Will Smith, you see this scene right here? And Will was like, yeah. He goes, Michael Bay looked at him and said, you need to thank me. This scene that I shot, I just made you a star. And I always think like that one scene, man, he said Michael Bay told him. After they filmed it, he cut it, and he played it back. He's like, you like that scene? Yeah, I look cool. He goes, you need to thank me. I just made that scene, I just made you a star. And he did, because everybody talks about that scene. I'm going to tell you right now, when Eddie Murphy did that scene, I hate white people, I hate rednecks, that whole sequence, that made him a star. I could imagine Walter Hill, Nick Nolte, everybody in there watching that scene and going, yeah, this kid's got it. And it's the scene that everybody talks about. If you look up old reviews, I kid, Cisco and Ebert, old reviews, they always talk about wait till you get to the Eddie Murphy solo scene in the bar. And you know why?
Oh, without question.
And also to hear, a black man, pull a switchblade out and tell somebody, I'm your worst nightmare, a nigga with a badge. I got permission to kick your ass when I feel like it. He'll walk around saying, I hate white people. Y'all are rednecks. You know what I mean? Just that whole scene.
I don't remember him saying I hate white people directly, did he?
Yeah, he does. He does. He goes, I hate white people. I hate rednecks. Y'all are rednecks. That means I'm enjoying this shit. Also, when he walks in, he goes, I've never seen so many backwards-ass country trucks in my life.
That I remember, but I just didn't remember if he said that specifically.
Yeah, he did. He said, I hate white people. He says it.
Okay.
But that scene alone, and that scene was like, 5-6 minutes? Mm-hmm. That was the scene that everybody talks about, and that's the scene that made Eddie Murphy a star.
I would concur. I mean, clearly it was a scene worth note. I mean, but for him to, when you really look at it, he's really young. I think he was 19 at the time.
Yeah, 19, 20 at the time. Yeah, he
So
was young. He was a big...
for that to be his first role outside of doing something stand up, it says a lot. It says a lot that he could own the moment, own the scene to such a degree that Nick Nolte did not need to support him. I mean, he had a one moment, of course, but even his exclamation at that point when he was like, "Yo, I'm just helping you out, officer." It was almost like him saying, "Yeah, we gotta do this, but you don't really need me. You kind of own this moment."
You know what's funny? Can I just add something to it? You know how we talked about Van Damme and other movies where it's your first movie, so you're surrounded by capable actors to help carry you? No, I think that was the moment where they said, we don't really need to carry this guy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would concur.
We don't need to carry him.
But yeah, that's all I got to say actually with regards to that scene. I mean, it just stood out. You could kind of tell it was a momentous scene. I didn't read anything prior to it, but it would have surprised me if that was a scene of note that most people realized. All right, now we got something. This kid is more than he's not a one trick pony. He's not a fluke. That we got something here. He's bankable. With that being said, let's move along with pick number 2. To me was, and it's funny you kind of touched on it a little bit, the casualness of the racial slurs was a big pick to me. And it wasn't exactly a negative. It worked for the film. And I don't want to be cliched even to say of its time. It was without motive. It was unapologetically an action film in a certain setting in which we could use these racial slurs back and forth without thought, care, and it goes back and forth. It's not like it's overly heavy-handed one kind of way, nor does it cast a mean shadow over the film.
No.
It kind of really shows a different type of film that probably could have only existed at the time that it came out, where you could you don't really have to deal with major issues, if you will, because it's of the time, it's of the space. I mean, we don't have to really beat you over the head with it, but at the same time, this is how we talk. So this ain't for no babies. This ain't for people with small feelings. This is just how we talk, and just even the usage of it. Even watching it after the fact, I didn't take any offense to it because that wasn't the film. But they use it just as easily back and forth with almost without thought till they have one moment where they actually let you know, we know what we're doing. That being said, do I want to get into that? Yeah, that being said, yeah, I think this would be the appropriate moment to even discuss that, was when they actually talked about, it was something that Jack said verbatim that I thought was really dope. He said when he apologized about calling him
watermelon,
the watermelon and all of that shit, and the N-word, he was like, I'm just doing my job, keeping you down. And that was an interesting choice of word. I'm doing my job. Just that's just me. Like, I don't mean that shit. It's just me doing my job, keeping you down. And he says doing your job doesn't explain everything. That was it. That said a whole lot. It was him saying, yo, I talk like that but the way he chose his words to keep you down, to keep you at a certain underspace, to keep you at a bottom level, which is hallmark for a lot of things that we don't need to touch on because I feel like that shit goes without saying. But then his response was, doing your job doesn't explain everything. Because, to be honest, is that your job? like just saying because you're doing your job, does it explain what you're saying? But they both were on the same accord. And that's something that stood out. Because you got to also remember, hey, You were kind of doing your job, Eddie, talking your shit in the bar.
Mm-hmm.
But it was an interesting way of them approaching it in such an adult manner without derailing the film. To focus on something that wasn't even the focus of the film. They addressed it within the film in a very smart, quiet way, just using one scene, two lines back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, that was a major pick for me that stood out. Your take.
I completely agree with what you said, and I'm not going to add anything to it because of my third pick.
Okay, let's get into pick 3.
My third pick is actually backing up everything you just said. My third pick is how they dealt with race. Mm-hmm. And I've heard a lot of people say how comedians today, a lot of things that was said back then you can't do today because obviously everything's politically correct. I want to give kudos to whoever the writers were of this movie. They deal with race, and they deal with it without pulling punches.
Very unapologetic, yes.
But yeah, they're not apologetic, but they don't beat it down your throat. They're not trying to send a message. You know what I mean? But Jack calls him a nigger. Mm-hmm. When they have the fight scene.
Shoot, even the fucking captain called him because he even had to say, I called you.
I was just about to say that. When Jack finally stands up for Reggie and says, hey, he's smarter than any part, let me tell you about this guy. He calls him a nigger convict. And the captain goes, yeah, I called him a nigger, you bet I did. And it was like, whoa. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So the way and he calls him watermelon. You know, Eddie calls Eddie rednecks, this, crackers. You know, they dealt with race without beating it down your head. And again, being unapologetic about it. And what I did like about it was, again, at the end of the movie, it shows you this. And I truly believe this in real life. I'm not saying that they became friends at the end of the movie, but you see how they went from one side to the end with the explanation where Jack throws the cuffs away, where they actually, when you take two people from opposite sides, and they got one common goal to stop gangs, to stop the bad guy, and they've been in shootouts together where they have to back each other up, you notice a lot of that racial stuff starts to fall away. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Not to say it's not there, but it's kind of like, yeah, watermelon nigga.
Well, in the face of danger, race has no place in the conversation.
Right. You know,
so it's the brothers in arms syndrome.
Yeah, it's kind of like, he's the watermelon nigga, he's the cracker, but we're in this car busting his guns. It was me and him busting together. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We was busting these guns together at the same time. You know what I mean? So I really enjoyed how they dealt with race, and they did it in a serious way, a comedic way. It was just, like I said, kudos to the writers. Kudos to the writers and kudos to both actors, Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte, for how they delivered it. So kudos to the director. So that was a big stand. That's my take, a big standout for me.
Well, my take, I would actually say that you're absolutely right. Like I said, it's all about how you write the film and write the story. A lot of the issues going on today with social justice being part of the idea of the film, a lot of people don't understand what the real eyesore is that some of you guys, you're just writing you wrote a policy and you wanted to make a film about your policy, as opposed to, we have a movie, we have a concept, and have the movie, and if there's something that you want to say through the movie, you can say it, but you don't have to make it all about the movie if that's not what the movie is about. Like, if you coming to see Guardians of the Galaxy, it shouldn't be. If you get chose to do Guardians of the Galaxy, but you have real feminist ideology, if you will, you don't make a feminist movie and then wear the skin of Guardians of the Galaxy. people would feel away. It would be a definite portrayal of the film isn't even about that. Like, why would you even chose to use that film? If you felt so impassioned to tell that story, maybe you should just make a movie about that. Because if you're not gonna make a movie about that, then don't use another film to be the vehicle to sell your ideology. And it's not about having a personal offense to the actual ideology. It's not even about that. This is the flicks, picks, and the nitpicks. We're talking about the film. What happens is you may betray the movie, forcing your agenda out there, because your agenda doesn't really match the skin that is in. So it'll beat people over the head so much that it'd be like, yo, I mean, don't get me wrong. Maybe I want to see the Susan B. Anthony movie, but maybe you should have wrote the Susan B. Anthony movie. Don't give me the movie you already written and change the names around. And now Susan B. Anthony is Gamora, and now everybody else is this. And they'll be like, yo, do you know what kind of movie you making? like, cause that's not like their story. Now, you could tell a story, you could have a story about feminism or address certain feministic aspects in the movie, but there's a big difference. And I think I said all that to say this. What they were trying to do in terms of that was they found a way to address it because of the world they lived in. So don't be unapologetic about the world they're from. This is their world. This is the 80s. This is how people feel. This is how people talk. They're very unapologetic about it. But the responsibility, if you will, or the social responsibility was to still be, because we're so cognizant, we've been doing it through the movie, we could touch on that in a moment in the movie when it makes sense. Because the way the film was these two people at odds finally getting to accord. When they get to that accord, you'll find the moment will be, it's written, it'll be in there. There goes the moment now where we could address what we've been doing the whole movie, instead of addressing it over and over and over and over and that's the eyesore a lot of people have. And I think that's one thing that was great about the times that those types of films came out at. There was, with respect to the rating, of course, if you have a certain level of rating, they'll deal with whatever they got to deal with. Very unapologetic, because you know what kind of film you come into. It's a rated R action flick with a dude that's locked up. So these are the people, they don't have no filters, and the audience accepts it. They accept it on the pretense of the movie, not on the pretense of themselves. And that's why they could get away with it. Most people come into the movies nowadays with their own isms within themselves, and they feel the movie has to play to your isms, and if it don't, then you feel offense and all of that. And that's not how you're supposed to consume movies. At least I don't believe so. You're supposed to deal with the movies on its own merit, as opposed to, well, they should know that I'm offended about this. That why did you come to see a rated R film? And I think that was the charm of it, and the charm of those movies at that time, which kind of ducktails me into my third pick, which were the real issues. And that's one thing that they actually peppered throughout the film in a lot of different ways. You got Jack having an issue with his girlfriend, and they start off with that. This is regular girlfriend. This was a way to show that this is an officer that is not without flaws. And they express it in how he tries to deal his interpersonal relationships. So now when you see how he is on a very intimate level, because he made mistakes and he'll say, I'm sorry, right to her. Like, he knows how he is. And she knew, because she was accepting it up to a degree. You could tell they had that kind of back and forth, because she kind of gets him, and he knows she's one of the very few chicks that could get my fucking ass. Like he probably, if you let him talk long enough, he probably say, I'm surprised she ain't quit me. But I'm sure if you talk to her long enough, she'd be like, nah, he's actually a good dude. It's just that he could be a dick. Like, you know what I'm saying? And they really show that spirit in a relationship from the very beginning. And then they also show the same old trope of the angry black Captain. Like, always lie. That's my voice carries. Like, you know, I said he's a nigga too. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they had that at Beverly Hills Cop with a mustache. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's you always had that in those types of the older, and a lot of times the older black cop that's usually a superior. You kind of got that with the Martin and Riggs type of thing. With Martin Riggs and what is his name? Danny Glover's character. Murtaugh. You kind of see it with it. I look like I'm kind of almost answering the questions now. But anyway, but you see that throughout all those type of films. So you still get the angry person. You got all these diverse personalities. Also, how they even address sex, which I thought was actually kind of beautifully put in a very quiet way for people that don't understand. Now, I'm not trying to drop the music and tint it real low and light some incense for how they address sex in such a deep and earth-shattering way. Not particularly. I said the fact that it was so casual and fluid, but it was important. He like, yo, I came out with some trend from the rip. But how they started off the movie, he got some. It's the balance of human beings, like connections. Everybody's trying to have a real human experiences coming out, and you want to have some sex. That's one of the things that people. The worst thing that you could do going to jail, you get deprived of it. So the fact that they were so loosely talking about it, and it was so important to him in such a way, and even when he gets it, it wasn't like some throwaway joint either. He was all building with the chick. Yeah, I'm gonna see you later, baby. He was real fly and sweat. I don't even know how he pulled her so arrogantly. And the funny thing is the fact that she was cool with it. She didn't get into feelings and have to have a whole fucking slut walk about the shit. He was like, yo, we go across the street. She was like, well, you can't come at me a little bit better than that. And it was honest. It was just honest. Like, yo, you could have probably get this if you come at it a little better. Clearly off the rip, she was feeling him. Feeling his swag. And many times I figured he would have dropped the ball, but he passed the 1 minute rule. Girl already knows within the first few minutes. The question is, can you talk yourself out of it? And he got a slick tongue. And plus you could tell he's very comedic with it. You don't really take it too far. It was never nothing too offensive. It was just how they dealt with sex. Even when he was talking about, yo, you could pay, like let me get in the room. And at the very end, what Jack does, he lets him get his time and there's nothing offensive about it. And I think even at that time, everybody understood what sex was about. It's fun, it's a connection, but it's human. It's fucking human. No one has to be offended about it. No one has to be in their feelings. It's those real human issues, real human interactions, the things that are about us as human beings that they express so fluidly, it's so effortlessly, and still, of course, with comedic value, of course, they still was able to do it with a certain lightheartedness. And I think most of the lightheartedness come from, it was very adult about it. It was very approachable about it. It was, like I said, it was non-offensive, like tip it through the tulips, if you will, quote unquote. You know what I mean? It was real, just this is what it is. And just like how they dealt with the racial issues by using how they talk to try to shit on each other, but at the same time they had a moment to let you know, but this is a real thing. That's why even when the brother said it, a convict nigga, yeah, I said it, because he know, like, that shit kind of, like, I'm the white officer, you saying this about the homie, and you a brother. Yeah, I said it. Yeah, I don't give a fuck. Like, it was, and you can't, I don't know, like, they handled real world issues without making it the need of the movie to feel like they even needed to do it. You know, like I said, it was very natural, even down to friendships, because you could kind of tell just by how they're interacting now. Like, this guy, he's been locked up for a minute. How he's building his relationship with this guy. Remember, it was his boy that was gonna go fuck off the money. Yeah, albeit to get his girl back, of course. That was a homie of his, but still. So now I'm building a relationship with the guy that's on the other side of the tracks of the law, and even I'm starting to, like an onion, as the layers get peeled, about me during it, you get to understand who I am. And I'll be real with you, there's some money. That's my agenda. We could go halvesies on it. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, nah, and then you get to really know who Jack is. Yeah, just take the money. No cut? Nah. But if you want to give me a gift, haha. But that was still all in your hands. You understood that he's a cop. And he makes it very clear at the very end. Yo, if you come out, get you on the other side, yeah, you can buy me a car and all that. Well, he made sure he said, give me some money for the car. And he even asked for a lot, a couple thousand, just to get me, and probably would have copped a used one. He was like, yo, I'll be right up on your bumper. And he probably go visit him after that. And it's these tried and true emotion that goes to show you something that happens with men when men can bond over a real significant experience, especially a violent experience. And I think that's what the film shined most on. Really kind of like walking through a lot of different human issues and expressing it through the film. Your thoughts?
Oh, I completely agree with what you said, and I'm going to say, you know what the movie gave me? It made real humans. Like, for example, you know how you talked about sex, right? Mm-hmm. Eddie Murphy plays a guy who's been locked up for 3 years. What does he say when he talks to Jack the first time about Jack's woman? Yo, she got like big, gigantic titties. Mm-hmm. And Jack says it's going to be a long night. Or when Jack finally opens up to him and goes, yeah, we got into a fucking fight, had sex in the morning, then we got into a fight. What does Eddie say? At least you took care of business first. You know, he's been, or one of my favorite, when my dick gets hard when the wind blows. I've been a lot of people using blue suits. Or the other one where they finally go to the garage where the car is at, and he goes, I'm going to be sleeping in the back. He goes, Jack, tell me a story. And Jack says, fuck you. Oh, that's one of my favorites. Like, he's been locked up in the way he approaches the girl. He's there to it. He literally says, listen, it's 8:10, whatever time. By 8:05, I want to be in some flesh. And she's like, you can't ask me no better. But again, Eddie's, I've been locked up. I'm only out for 2 days. I don't got, you said this before, I ain't got time for no bullshit. Mm-hmm. Like, I got an objective besides protect my money. I'm trying to get some. You know what I mean? And obviously, she was feeling his swag, but the bottom line is, it's very unapologetic because it's real. Here's another scene that I love, when you talk about how real Jack is. When Jack's partners get killed, right, in the beginning, when he's back at the police station, and Jack is like, can I get a new gun, whatever, and his officers are talking, he's like, yo, Jack, when 2 guys get shot, and he goes, well, they shouldn't have fucked up. And he goes, his partner goes, one of the fellow officers goes, according to us, according to you, we're all the fuck up. And Jack goes, hey, the truth hurts. Like, Jack had a real chip on his shoulder, like, he doesn't even like say, oh my God, I can't believe, like, literally 2 guys have been killed, and Jack's response is, they fucked up. But his response, they fucked up. So at the end of the day, as ragged as Jack was good at his job. Jack was good at his job. Mm-hmm. And he literally, that was the scene. I remember rewinding that scene when I watched it, because I couldn't believe it. Like, you know, Jack, 2 cops are dead. And he was like, according to us, we're the ones that always fuck up. And Jack's response is, hey, the truth hurts. Like, yeah, I'm sorry they did, but they fucked up. And these are real human moments. Like, I think the movie, the writers, they painted a picture of real humans. You know who was another human scene? And this is another scene where I'll show you Eddie Murphy's growth. And this was a dramatic scene. When he finally kills Billy face to face. Do you remember his face and him?
No, I know. That was the first body he caught.
But now remember, he had already been shooting. Remember, they had the shootout with the bus. But remember, that was in the bus. They're both just busting guns. But then when he was up close with Billy, you know, Billy, you're not going to lose. The way his eyes were and the way he was shaking the gun.
That's all I'm about to say. It was really the moment when he was shaking the gun. That's when you knew it wasn't he wasn't no killer. And that's when Billy looked at him and smiled. Was like, "Oh, you pussy. You not like that." Yeah. And he pulls his knife and then he ends up busting.
But I also thought, as an actor, now not to say it was a big traumatic scene, But it showed a little range for that Eddie had something besides the comedy. It showed it maybe, oh, he got a little something. Because, to be honest, he actually sold the shit he's never done. Because even I was like, yo, okay. He looked nervous there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I thought that for the writers to even concede that, yeah, he just had a fight with Jack. He just rousted a whole goddamn bar by himself. He was in a shootout with a bus, crashed through a window, but when it was an up-close and personal shot, he was scared as shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it really, I have to give kudos to the writers of this movie. I have to give kudos to them. The dialogue, everything. And I think why it works is because, you know, you say it's unapologetically human. It's unapologetically human. You know, a guy who's in jail for that many years, guess what? Sex is on his mind. So he's not thinking about, I have to say, no, I'm trying to fuck. Oh, what, your girl got big titties? Yo, look at these girls right here. That's what he's not coming out trying to wine and dine. You know, I only got 48 hours and the clock is ticking. So remember, I got to somehow protect my money, stop gangs, and slide in some ass. I've got time to be, you know what I mean? We're not going to the chateau. We're not going to the chateau for me to buy dinner and flowers. Remember, he tried to fuck 2 prostitutes in a police station.
That's a whole fact.
And pretend to be lawyers. That's literally what it was.
Well, like I said, I mean, it just goes back to a time where people were just unapologetically human about what they wanted and what they needed about life without everybody having to be in their feelings about it. And I think that's what's one of the most refreshing things about watching films of this time. Mm-hmm. All right. So, can we get into your pick? This is going to be your 4th pick, correct?
No, that was it. That was my third. My third was piggybacking off of yours. So I'm done with the pick.
All right. Well, I got one last pick, which really was character development over the course of the film. Again, this film was really character driven, and the film is a vehicle for the two's chemistry, which I felt like they played off each other. Excuse me?
I said it was amazing chemistry.
Yeah, I'd say amazing, yes. And the two played off of each other very well, but their chemistry was basically the vehicle in which the story drove. So it was just all about, like, at some point you'd also you might even forget they're supposed to be chasing gains. You just enjoy their interaction all the way even to the end, because remember, he could have went back off to jail, but he was like, he wanted to go check the girlfriend's house, and he was like, well, why would he want to go see the girl? The girl didn't even want to fuck with him no more. He was like, well, what else you got to do? I mean, I could take you back to jail. He was like, oh yeah, the girlfriend's house. Let's go do that. And like I said, just moments like that lets you know that these are just two people on a very natural and human level, got a chance to understand each other, relate to each other, and build an actual relationship based on this brother. 48 hours, of course, but based on the preset of the brothers in arms, because that's exactly what they were. Your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. No, excellent. Excellent. I think that, and when you really think about it, there's only really like 4 action scenes. If you want to consider the first shootout when he breaks out of jail, then there's the one where Jack's partner gets killed. If you want to consider the fight scene where they fight each other in the alley, then there's obviously the bus shootout and the fight. There aren't really big spectacles of action scenes that we're used to now. When you really think about it, the longest action scene is the bus scene, and that's really fast. This movie is really carried by the characters. And it's a testament to, you know, again, what did you say the budget was?
I think it was $1 million. Yeah, it's $1 million.
$1 million, and it did almost $80 million. I remember you're talking 19.
Yeah, 78.9.
So okay, so let's just say 80. So you're talking 19.
So it made a lot more than Bloodsport did, and Bloodsport cost another $500 million on top, and it still made it over.
But also, it goes back to what we said before. You don't need millions and millions. It's something Jay-Z once said about making video. And Jay-Z said, why would I spend $1 million on a video when I could spend $100,000 and give you $1 million performance? You know what I mean? So you didn't have to spend a lot of money to make this movie. But it's really carried off the chemistry of these two actors, the writing, the acting. Like, that, that's what carries the movie. Like, it's an action movie, but the action is not what carries this movie. You know, as opposed to, let's be honest, Bloodsport is carried by the action, the physicality. And that's not a knock on Bloodsport or movies like that. It's not a knock on them. But this is considered an action movie, but the action is not what carries 48 hours. And that's all I have to say on that.
All right.
So I completely agree. I completely agree with the character part.
All right. Well, this is the next segment for the audience. The nitpicks, and this is basically where we get to the nerdy part of the segment, where we can just start like peeling back a lot of little ancillary things that might be a nitpick for you guys, whether it's good or bad, positive or negative, but it's just something, it's the ingrown toenail, if you will, sometimes, that you just want to talk about that may not be a major pick, but it's a major nitpick. And we're not going to pick every last one, but we will select our top ones. And from, actually, well, since this is your film, can you set us off with your first nitpick?
Yeah. I don't have many, but I do have one that stood out to me. That's clearly Eddie Murphy not boxing in the alley.
Not boxing?
In the alley, the fight scene with Jack.
He was fighting. They were fighting.
No. When he's doing the jabs, oh, you missed it. I thought you would have caught it because one of your picks with Daha was the stunt, though.
Oh, I didn't notice that. All right, I didn't notice.
Wow,
I didn't even notice it.
The guy boxing is clearly about 20 pounds bigger than Eddie Murphy.
Wow, that's funny. I missed that.
I thought, to be honest, that was going to be something you would have caught.
I'm mad I didn't.
It's when they're boxing and when he's throwing the jab, when he's just jabbing him. There's two shots. It's so clear as day that wasn't Eddie Murphy.
I'm gonna rewind that. I'm gonna rewind it because I actually watched it just before I got here.
That was if I wanted to nitpick something that stood out, that was a nitpick for me. That fight scene, those two shots when he's doing the jabs, and it was clearly not Eddie Murphy. You didn't even get a guy his size. It looked like Eddie Murphy was probably, because I think in real life he's 5'10". So let's say he was 19 or 20. So let's just say Eddie was 150 pounds. That dude was clearly 170, 175 with muscle.
I didn't notice it, but I definitely will put that on the rewind.
So that was a nitpick. So there yours.
My nitpick really was some of the reckless shooting of Eddie Murphy. Is for him to be a convict and just be letting the fuck off at that car made no sense. I was like, I mean, and like I said, it's a nitpick. It doesn't really bother me within the realms of the film. But if I'm really watching this, it's like, yo, you kind of just, for a convict, you really just recklessly busting your gun. And now if you was to hit someone, how you gonna explain this shit? So I guess for me it was just some of the legalities of how he was carrying on, busting at that bus the way he was, with respect to understanding that they were getting shot at. Still, it was a nitpick. Your thoughts?
Okay, I will have to disagree on this because Jack gave him the gun and he was.
No, he didn't give him the gun. Remember, he took that. Yeah,
but then he told him, he said, ta-da, and he was like, I'm not even going to bother with him.
Yeah, he let him have it.
So, and with you being the cop, you kind of gave it to him. You know what I mean?
And again, that's why I said it was reckless, because now he's dumping out like I said, it was a nitpick.
I mean, for me, it wasn't a nitpick because, I didn't see him reckless shooting. I just thought he had people that were shooting back. But, I mean, like I said,
I think a convict shooting is reckless. That's the point.
Yeah, but I guess the reckless person is Jack.
Yeah, that's what I said again. It just stood out to me a little bit.
Yeah. No. It's funny because it's for me it's a nitpick, but it's not a bad thing. It just really stood out to me. Eddie Murphy's white shoes.
I didn't even know he had white shoes. What part?
He had these bright white shoes on with his suit. And it was just so
I didn't even notice that. That's funny. How I missed that?
He had this great suit on.
I know the gray
suit
suit because it was a dope little suit. I noticed
the
suit.
He had these bright white shoes on, and obviously, it's funny because Jack makes the comment about it. He dressed like a pimp, whatever.
Yeah,
and he's
pimp.
Like, but I look good. Which is, you know, what's funny? When I hear that scene, it kind of bothers me now because I remember White Man Can't Jump with Woody Harrelson says black guys would rather look good and lose.
Yeah, it was what it was.
Yeah, and Jack kind of says it. Yeah. Jack says, you got $1,000 suit on, you're still a loser. And Eddie's response is, but I look good.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm older, it's like, damn. Like, damn.
I see what you're saying.
Like, damn. Do we really rather? And then, of course, we look at the times now, people broke out of Gucci. So kind of like, damn. They was talking about that even in the 80s.
Hey man, it's something that's always been talked about. Ghetto Fabulous.
Yeah,
Ghetto Fabulous is a thing.
No,
So,
but,
it's like the have-nots get the most that they can, and they just want to look clean in the world that they living in. So it's an understandable trope, and it's just funny that they played off on it the way that they did.
Yeah. So that was it. Just his bright white shoes.
If I'm up next with nitpicks, I really didn't have any more nitpicks, so the next one would be up to you.
That was really it. I really don't have any nitpicks in the movie, and that's kind of why these are why I consider certain movies I pick classics, because there's not really nitpicks in it. I mean, even the nitpicks that I picked, the only one that in the white shoes, it kind of goes with the comedic flair of Eddie Murphy's character. So when you get to learn Reggie Hammond, it goes with it. It's just like, yeah, those shoes are bright. But I guess the only really thing that stood out was the body double who did the fight scene, or just part of the fight scene, I would say. And to be honest, if I did another nitpick, you know that fight scene? Eddie Murphy was beating his ass, and then Jack just comes back.
Well, he didn't just come out of nowhere. He rushed them and he street fought him. He dropped him on the ground, and then he got on top of him, and he didn't box no more. He was like, all right, fuck that. And then he just said, I'm just going to run into you, drop you. And that's why he said, yo, you're going to push me into the trash.
Yeah, when he was just punching him in the face. But again, here's another real scene. When the other two cops pulled him over. Oh, matter of fact, you know what? You know how you just said about Reckless?
Yeah.
Remember you said about Reckless? Before they fought, right? When Jack is like, yo, I'm going to kick your ass out in the street. Wasn't it reckless that Jack just took his gun out and threw it on the hood of the car?
That's very reckless. Yeah, that's
like,
something.
I just thought about it when you said reckless. He took a swig of his alcohol, he took his gun out and threw it on the hood of the car and then punched them. That was some reckless shit.
Mm-hmm.
like you didn't even unload the gun, pull the clip out the chamber. You just pulled the holster, threw it on the hood. Not even in the back seat, you threw it on the hood. Like
I said, it was a little reckless.
Yeah, like you just knew when the fight's over, the gun would be there. So I guess that would, because you brought up reckless, and I just thought about it. But
no, I'm not saying no more. You got another nitpick, or that's just it?
If I pick a classic movie, it's going to be rare nitpicks.
All right. Well, that being said, any final closing thoughts?
My final thought is, again, 48 Hours, I consider to be one of the great movies. I think that when it comes to, and I guess we'll answer that question, but the buddy movie, especially when it's the buddy of the race, you have Lethal Weapon, you had the Sidney Poitier, in the heat of the night, Defiant One, you had Gregory Hines and Billy Crystal running Scared. You've had a lot of these cop movies where it's two different races. I do put them up there with one of the top. I think 48 Hours touches on so many things, from action, dialogue, realism, race relations. And I just think that it is a classic movie that you're going on 1982, 92, 2000, like almost over 30 years. We're going over 30 years, and this movie, to me, it stands the test of time. Like, I can watch 48 Hours and still just entertained by it. And again, it clearly explains why Eddie Murphy was in the 80s considered the box office king. Because after that was Trading Places. Then you had the two Beverly Hills Cop movies coming to America. Like, keep this Delirious. Raw. Like, from 1982 to like 1990, something like that. For a good decade, Eddie Murphy was called the box office king, and this is the movie that set it off. It's just a classic movie, man. Just a classic movie that just stands the test of time. I consider 48 Hours one of the greats.
Well, for me, I mean, I think one of the greatest things for me is watching a film like this, especially after so many years. You know, exactly, it still does hold up. I enjoyed it as always. It is definitely takes me back to a certain time where films were a lot more grittier, if you will. Like, I don't know, just felt like a more gritty environment, gritty filmmaking, especially for a cop movie, and the type of film that it is, the genre in which that it comes from, for like your Lethal Weapons and things of that nature, which came a lot further down the line. I think this is like a great addition to the genre of action buddy films, if you will, which kind of goes into the question of the day: is, can this be seen as a buddy cop film? Because obviously they're not both cops, only one is. And notice as I even talk around it, and what you could only relate this film to is cop films, then is it, and you've already, and I'm assuming that you have already answered the question in your own right. Is it fair to say, T?
Yeah, I've answered the question.
I mean, but I'm assuming that you feel that it is a buddy cop film.
Yeah, I do. I mean, technically it's not technically, because both of them are not cops, but I'm going to call it a buddy cop movie. Because the closest thing to this would be, obviously it's not different races, but De Niro did a movie called Midnight Run. He plays like
haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
Right, he plays a bounty hunter, and it's his whole adventure with the guy who jumped parole. So that's the closest thing to it. I would have said Sidney Poitier's Defiant Ones, but no, because they're both escaped convicts. So technically, it is not, because they're both not police officers, partners, or like Miami Vice. Or there's a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger where he plays a cop from Russia who comes to Chicago, again directed by Walter Hill. James Belushi plays the cop, and they team up. So it's still a cop movie. So technically, no, because they're both not cops. But if I had to really lump it in that group, I have no problem saying it is a buddy cop movie. Because I think a lot of it was, I think a lot of things got birthed out of it. So
I mean, well, for me, because it's only contemporaries or definitive, unequivocal to debate buddy cop films, I would feel like it actually sits nicely amongst it without it shining out no further than the stigma of both of the protagonists not being actual officers. And that in and of itself, I would have to, even though technically it's not, I'd have to sit it in the space of a buddy cop film. So I guess we've come to at least a resolve here on that point. But that being said, I mean, again, a great film, a great classic to trip down memory lane to. And
before you end, I do want to ask one question to you, though.
Okay.
I have one question, because we answered the buddy cop, and I just thought about this. We were talking about the realism of this movie, right?
Okay.
With the way the world is today, because I thought about what you said about going on, could 48 hours last? Could 48 hours work today? With everything in the world today, political correctness, could this exact movie last in 2020 if it was made in 2020?
What do you think?
To be honest, I'm really stuck on that. I think there are so many scenes in this movie that would get protested. I think Eddie Murphy, it's funny because Eddie Murphy's character is driven by he wants to have sex, which to me is a natural instinct, but I think there'd be a subgroup of women who would be like, we're being sexualized when he's been in jail for years. Like, I don't get this. Or even the talk of rape and how it's resolved at the end, but so quietly. So I'm really stuck on whether or not could you take this exact same movie and drop it today, and would it be well received?
Well, I mean, for me, the way I look at it is like this. Because of the way the world is situated, I don't know if that a movie like that could speak to these times. The movie that would need to come out would have to be nest in this time. Not to say that anything that they dealt with, from race relations to how people speak, was that far off or dissimilar from how we speak. Maybe some of the racial slurs so overtly might not have been open in the public and like right in front of people without doors being closed. I don't think they would have been chucked so loosely, like the black captain using the N-word, if you will. I do feel like the sexual, all other stuff for the most part should be able to fit in it. The thing is the audience member does not even fit the world in which that they live in.
Right. Okay.
So I think the audience that this new audience member that's a lot more personal and has so many subjective expectations film's supposed to have for their personality, that it's possible it might not work, but it's also might have been a movie that would have worked because people would have been just tired of having to act like we don't talk a certain kind of way amongst each other. So it could be either or. It could be a breath of fresh air. Like, how come this movie got by? Because people are just tired of tiptoeing around sex. Like, guys don't enjoy sex no more. Like, when did that start happening? You feel me? So it might have been the breath of fresh air, but at the same time, I can see why it would be disjointed for the times we're in, because the audience member, maybe it could fit in the world, but in some sort of way, with certain stigmas on how they presented the racial element of it. I just think that the audience member, that would have been the bigger thing, and because, like I said, in the world that we live in now, it's not as vocal with that part, at least the racial part at this moment. But again, like I said, it's also about I think that's more on the audience. You know, I know one thing for sure is, at this moment, I don't think anybody would want to release it because people care more about politics than actually just, we got this new movie I want y'all to see. I think it's a good time to drop it. Boom, boom, boom. Now we make movies with politics more in mind as a character of the movie. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that most people this day and age may not have been able to articulate the most, but no one wants to watch a movie where the political atmosphere is the supreme protagonist and everybody else follows right behind, starring starring how we feel. Now starring and also starring Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. Is like, God damn, like, give me the movie. So in that regard, I just think that that's just where I stand with it. With that being said,
overall thoughts on the movie, No, I was saying, I was like, yeah, your overall thoughts on the movie. I just want to get that question out.
Oh yeah. That being said, like I said, it's a good movie. Great trip again down nostalgia lane. It also showed you a great time in movie making, if you ask me. Where I feel like you got more fun out of the movie, if that makes sense. I don't know what happened behind the scenes with that. I don't know if there's a story labored issue towards it that I could think of, but it just felt like this movie, you just felt the fun. People just say, yo, this is the movie we're gonna make, and they just ran with it. And I think it just shined most, again, like I said, on just a character development, and it was just good to go down memory lane with this kind of film for me. So, but like I said, for us, this is just how we feel about the movie. This is only half of the conversation. The other half, and the most important part of the conversation, is what you guys drop in the comment section, please. And also, if you guys out there have any kind of ideas or nostalgic movies, man, somewhere down the line, man, we're gonna have days where it's gonna be a comments or I don't know how we would phrase it, but it'd be one of you guys a viewer's pick. And we'll pick some of the movies that come from the viewers, and we'll get to see what they feel. Maybe it'll be our first time visiting the film, or maybe it be first time in a long time. But the point is, it's just about enjoying movies, enjoying films as art pieces, enjoying films in terms of having some understanding of the actual industry and business of filmmaking, because a lot of people forget that's a cog in the wheel too. That's part of the palette. That's part of the artistry of it. How you could weave this within the margins of the budget, within the margins of the politics now, and but also within the constraints of what can be done, or what needs to be seen in the film as it's handed down from the people from above. But the point in it is finding a way to artistically still paint the picture that you want to do with all of these in mind, and seeing what the audience has to say about it and what they can get out of the film. And that's, again, the best part about it. That breeds conversation, and that's why you guys are here. You just want to sit down with the brothers, sit down with us, and just chop it up about the films that we love, maybe some that we didn't, but the movies that are out there, because we love watching movies, what we get out of it. And for me, like I said, I'm always easily entertained, but I can't critically I could critique a film. I have no problem critiquing a film and being hypercritical of even films that I just like, for whatever my reasonings are. But again, it's always about how you guys feel. So leave it in the comments below. Have some fun with us. Come chop it up with us. Stay connected with us. And from me and from T, want to sign off to the people out there.
Listen, until we meet again. Until we meet again.
And again, from me, Mr. NOVE, as always, leave it in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe. See you next time. And as always, till I have a better outro, chill.